There's been a flurry of recent visits to Myanmar by Western governments who are offering more development assistance. The U.S. says it now wants to restore full diplomatic relations with the nation following its recent reforms. You're watching Inside Story Americas from Washington. Hello and welcome to the show. I'm Lisa Fletcher. The top Republican politician in the U.S. Senate, Mitch McConnell, is in Southeast Asian nation of Myanmar, also known as Burma. He met with pro-democracy leader Aung San Suu Kyi on Monday, and on Tuesday he met with President Thein Sein. It follows a visit last month by the U.S. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, and it marks a new engagement with the nation. For nearly 2 decades, since the regime's brutal crackdown of the 1988 pro-democracy demonstrations and its refusal to honor the 1990 election results, the U.S. attempted to isolate Myanmar and imposed tough sanctions. In November 2010, an election took place which led to a nominally civilian government, but its ranks are filled with former generals, including President Thein Sein. And in recent months, the new regime has begun a series of reforms. First, it began dialogue with the pro-democracy leader Aung San Suu Kyi, who had spent 22 years under house arrest until her release in November 2010. It's pursuing peace deals with ethnic minority rebels. On Tuesday, the military was told to halt all offensives in ethnic minority conflict zones, according to officials. And the government has pardoned hundreds of imprisoned dissidents. Just last Friday, around 200 political prisoners were released. These reforms have led the U.S. administration to order the restoration of full diplomatic ties. Here's what Secretary of State Hillary Clinton had to say last Friday on news of the prisoner release.
As I said last December, the United States will meet action with action. Based on the steps taken so far, we will now begin. In consultation with members of Congress and at the direction of President Obama, we will start the process of exchanging ambassadors with Burma. We will identify a candidate to serve as U.S. ambassador to represent the United States government and our broader efforts to strengthen and deepen our ties with both the people and the government.
So why is the U.S. reaching out to Myanmar, and what's to gain from doing so? And is President Thein Sein committed to meaningful progress, or is he simply serving as the public face of the old junta in its quest to retain power? Joining us to discuss this and more is Kyaw Win. He was the second most senior diplomat in the Myanmar or Burmese embassy in Washington, D.C., but he defected in July of 2011 and has since been granted political asylum in the United States. Doug Bandow is from the Cato Institute here in Washington, D.C., and Aung Din is from the U.S. Campaign for Burma, an organization which promotes human rights and campaigns to bring an end to the military dictatorship. Welcome to all of you. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Win, I'd like to start with you. Sort of set the stage for us in terms of Myanmar and how we, in terms of the world and that country, got to the place that it's in right now.
My feeling is that just the West tried to contain the China influence in Asia. Sometimes I feel that our country, Burma, something becomes like a bond between the two powers. And then other thing is, the military dictatorship in our country is so long time, nearly 50 years.
50 years.
50 years, since 1962. And then, I feel that the government, just felt that they need to change. Because you already know that in the Arab world, in other countries, everybody changed, and they believe that they need to change. But my impression right now is they want to change their own way, not that the world is better or the other democracy. Because in since 1962 to 1988, our the regime we call the Burmese Socialist Progressive Party, they try to build up their own the Burmese way to socialism, something like same thing here. They try to, build the Burmese way to democracy. I don't know if it will work or not. But then it depends on international community, how they support, how to engage. It depends on that.
Well, right now, countries around the globe are focused on Myanmar. The U.S., the EU, Japan, Australia. There's a lot of speculation, though, as to why, including speculation about business and economic interests. In fact, Myanmar has huge amounts of untapped natural resources, including oil and gas, minerals, gems, timber. In 2010, Myanmar and China agreed on a pipeline worth $2 billion to ship oil and gas to China from the Bay of Bengal. South Korea has struck a deal to develop mineral resources, including rare earths, which are vital to many high-tech products. And Japan, too, is seeking a similar deal. Labor costs are less than 1/5 of those in China or Thailand, which could attract U.S. investment in, for example, garment factories. So, Doug, let me ask you, what is driving these nearly simultaneous policy changes? And are there other objectives in play here in addition to human rights and democracy?
I think there are a lot of issues involved with Burma. The potential change in the human rights and democracy is what's triggered the administration's move towards engagement. But the U.S. certainly is involved on economic issues. There's a concern that China has had disproportionate influence there economically, and other Asian countries are involved, so American companies are not involved. There's also the geopolitics. China has had a very strong political and military relationship with Burma, and that is something which concerns this administration. The president recently made a trip to Asia, and he basically gave a speech indicating that the U.S. was going to try to contain China. He didn't quite say it that way, but we are going to put more Marines into Australia. The Pentagon strategy report is indicating a shift of forces from Europe to Asia. So I think this administration in the background is worried about geopolitics, it's worried about economic opportunities, and it is genuinely concerned about human rights. And what they've seen now is a hope, not yet fulfilled, but a hope of positive reform. And if they can push that forward, they could have a gain on all three. If you actually get changes in Burma, you might get economic opportunities, you get improved human rights, and you suddenly get an engagement that helps reduce Chinese influence. That sounds like a pretty good deal, I think, to the people in the State Department and the White House.
Here's what Secretary of State Hillary Clinton had to say about the U.S. objectives in Myanmar.
Democracy is the goal. That has been the goal from the very beginning. And yet we know that it has been a long, very difficult path that has been followed. We do see openings today.
To all three of you gentlemen, and whomever wants to jump in, please do. We've seen a series of reforms here that Secretary of State Clinton has indicated are good things. Reaching out to the rebels and addressing media censorship and changing the labor laws. But I'm curious, and I think a lot of other people are as well, does this mean that there is true reform going on, or is this just really good window dressing to attract the interests of the West?
Well, Lisa, let me talk about this. First, I agree with many of the points mentioned by Mr. Kyaw Win and Doug. That we need to think about how the Burmese military conduct has been conducting to build their power in the country. So I believe that this government has been trying to reach out to the United States for many, many years ago, even when President Bush was in power. But at that time, the United States does not have the policy to engage with the region. At the same time, the region has no show any interest to make any kind of concession. But right now, within 2 years, the region has built its political system, which is based on the 2008 Constitution, which grants the supreme power in the hands of the military.
Let's talk about that, because if the supreme power is granted to the military under the Constitution,
yes,
then any concession that they make right now to Suu Kyi, it doesn't really mean anything, does it?
No. That's why I'm going to talk about this. First, why they change? First, United States has a dual track policy, which is maintaining the sanctions in place, at the same time directly engaging with the region. So this is a kind of the dual track policy which initiated by the Secretary Clinton. And then the Arab Spring. When the regime conducted the 2010 election, this election was very, very flawed, right? Also bogus election. But from this election, regime's military backed by the USD became the election winning party in the government now. But they haven't changed anything yet. But they saw the Arab Spring happening in Middle East and Arab country. People, peaceful protests coming to the street, calling for the regimes to change, for the positive change. One of the senior officials from the State Department told me that during the Arab Spring, 3 governments in Asia are watching those Arab Spring movement very eagerly and very closely. So these three governments, China, North Korea, and Burma. So the Burmese regime, apparently, they don't want to see people coming into the street for positive change, demanding for positive change. If they can't, the people come to the street, they have to shoot and kill them as they did before. And then they will face some kind of increased outcries from the international community. Look at Libya, look at Egypt. When the people look at Syria, when the dictators kill their people, the international made a lot of pressure on the regime. Finally, end up with the establishment of UN Commission inquiry to investigate government's atrocity in this country. You might notice that there are international campaign actually made by us and many other colleagues, calling for the United Nations to establish UN Commission inquiry to investigate war crimes and crimes against humanity in Burma. If this time people come to the street, if regime kill them, then the commission inquiry will be realized by the Human Rights Commission or General Assembly, whatever. At the same time, if let's say it happens, the regime needs to appeal to back to the Chinese government for protection from the international pressure. But meanwhile, they feel that Chinese government has been putting a lot of pressure, making bully among the regional leadership. They know that they can have the protection from the Chinese government, but they have to pay big price tag, such as economic concession over all the natural resources, including the Burma's main river for the Chinese hydropower projects. So this makes them to think about how to balance the power of China in Burma. So only way to do so, that's only one way to do so, to have a positive relationship with the United States. So when they send a message to the United States by canceling the large hydropower dam project in Kyaw River, so the United States got a signal clearly from the Burmese regime. Okay, now they are trying to reduce their reliance on China. They would like to have relationship with United States and Western country. But United States has a principle. They have the benchmarks. They are thinking about the democracy, human rights, and national reconciliation, as well as cutting the time between the Burmese government and the North Korean government. So if you would like to have the positive relationship, then you must do the concession, starting to release all political prisoners, and start to negotiate with the Aung San Suu Kyi democracy movement, try to end the civil war, and have the national reconciliation peacefully. These are the benchmarks set by the United States government and the Congress. So now they are trying to follow in the way the benchmark set by the United States, but we don't know how long they will go. So if you will ask me the question whether I trust in this government or not, I don't trust them too.
You don't trust this government. Kyaw Win, do you trust this government?
I already worked for more than 30 years. I know that. If I trust, I will be there. I'm not trusting. I'm already here. And the other thing is, I don't think the government, care about the international pressure. Never. We don't care that.
Why?
We don't need to. We are surviving in some level.
Surviving through the help of China and India, so the U.S. sanctions really didn't mean much to begin with?
They didn't mean much with things. Only the U.S. sanctions, we care about the legitimacy. Because of the sanction, we are not legitimate. That's all. Also, the dam suspension thing is that I don't think because of the benefit of China or the pressure of the U.S. Pressure of the people, because they just scared of the people coming up to the street. In that time, considering that the Arab Spring there, and because of the dam suspension campaign, most of the political parties, all the people are just voice very loudly there, and then they just scared of the people coming out of the street, and they just suspend, not to stop the dam. I think according to my knowledge, they already 7 times, they just 1 dam. Also, the other factor might be catching KIU. They are fighting with KIU, and they can, the fight can well. There's some confusion about the things. To balance with the China is very difficult to see the things, because China and United States is not the same position on Burma. Because in the we are bordering with China for the around 1,000 miles, and there are so many ethnic groups there. War is just creation of the China. They are not our ethnic group war. We got our ethnic group war, but now wars are most of China. And then China can China have supported our Burmese Communist Party for a long time. Because of the Burmese Communist Party war had treated. And then now they won't, and they can't fight with the war. Because all the institutions are already breaking down, including army. We don't have any institutional capacity to build the country back. That's why I think they just go for the ceasefire. Extremely, first they try to fight all the ethnic group. Ceasefire means that if you want to fight ceasefire, you need to talk with all the ethnic group at the same time. Now they just, I think we got that thing is we got from the British, the colonists, divide and rule. They just talk with the one ethnic group, one ethnic group. And then when our Shan leadership control came out of the prison, he just said that there is the only national addressed by the government is the Shan. So I came from the Shan state. And then that's why it's not the counterbalance or something like that. They just scared of the people. That's why we need to encourage the people to give the pressure to the government to have a change.
Could I add something?
Please.
I don't think anyone should trust this government. I mean, we've had 50 years of military rule, and the consequences have been horrible for the Burmese people. What I think is we don't know the answer to the question, is this real? Is it permanent? Or is it window dressing? What I do think is we have a responsibility to test it, because we've long had a period where nothing seemed to work. We had sanctions, and the military was as brutal as ever. It had close relations with China, and the Burmese people remained oppressed. So I view this as an opportunity. Let's press this government. Let's see how powerful is it? Is it genuinely committed to reform? Will these reforms deepen, or will they be reversed? We're seeing a lot of good things. The ceasefire with the Karen National Union, relaxed media censorship, the recent release of political prisoners, Aung San Suu Kyi's release, and the registration of the National League for Democracy. I mean, all of these could be reversed, but having all of them happening at once gives me at least some hope that we're in a new era. So I would, the old Reagan phrase was trust but verify. I don't trust these people.
I totally agree with you. Whether these are true or not, whether these are reversible or not, there's an opening there. We need to seize this opening. We need to take this opportunity to open the opening wider and bigger. This is our job. So that means people of Burma know that very well. Now they got pressure off from their body now. They can talk, they can speak briefly, they can go here, there, to every political rally. They can raise their voices, and they can put the Aung San Suu Kyi's photo at their home. Now they saw the opening. Now they like this opening. They will not take this away from them. Even though a government would like to change.
So regardless of the government's intention, whether it is sincere or not, do you gentlemen agree that this provides enough of an opening to perhaps lead the way to real reform?
Yeah.
Yeah, that also depends on both sides. Both sides mean how the people of Burma will take opportunity to open this space wider and bigger. Also, how international community will provide or also continue to engage with the region, continue to pressure the region to change their behavior. I think this need exercise from the both sides. That's why we have been talking to the United States government. Every response to the changes in the Burma by the United States should be carefully calibrated. Not too slow, not too fast, not too much, not too little. So it's difficult. But anyhow, there's a change, there's a space. We want people to use this space to open bigger and bigger, wider and wider, with the support of us, with the support of international community.
But with the military still at the core of this government and still having control, what happens when the population gets too big in terms of not size, but too much, too vocal, too independent, too much in control of power? Then does the military just yank it all away?
No.
There's a possibility.
Let me tell you one thing. This government is not the politicians. We are just the civil service or military service. We are just, the government servants. We know just to do the, follow the orders and to meet the implementation. We can make the good decisions. And then also, as I said, before, all the institutions are already breaking down. If we want to, bring the country back to the, like the situation before 1962, we need to build up the capacity building. Our, the education, our, health, also all the, the institutions, all breaking down. How do you implement, even, the president thinks they have a good intention, how could this institution can implement the, the president's direction? I don't think so. I've been in there for more than 30 years, I know that. And then in this case, we need to build up our civil service. Also that we need to make a strong institution to, how to say, to function the country well in the right directions.
Now they are going to hold the by-election on 1st April. And then there will be 48 seats available for lower house, upper house, and the regional parliaments. And then Aung San Suu Kyi and National League for Democracy has decided to contest in the by-election. So they may win. I believe that they may, if the election is free and fair, they will win.
Don't worry, election will be free and fair.
Let me finish.
I'm sure
let me finish. If they win, the election is free and fair, they will win. Then Aung San Suu Kyi and members annually will be in the parliament, and they will have chance to speak about changing the constitution, so and so. They were trying to make the points for the country. But people think that since USDP control the 80% majority of the parliament, and the military has a veto power to object any kind of positive amendment, people think that Aung San Suu Kyi cannot do that much. But it's kind of the risk she has taken seriously. Yeah, maybe they can control it, they can contain in a parliament with a small minority position without doing anything. Or maybe she can change other members of parliament, to follow her way through for the positive change for the country. And that's why how far she can go will depend on people outside the parliament, how they can support Aung San Suu Kyi.
Let's listen to what Aung San Suu Kyi had to say while meeting with Hillary Clinton last December.
Before we decide what steps to take, we have to find out what our greatest needs are. And of course, two of the greatest needs in this country are rule of law and a cessation to civil war. All hostilities must cease within this country as soon as possible.
Doug Bandow, Aung San Suu Kyi is but one woman, and a lot of people are putting a lot of faith just in her. How does the international community, the democratic international community, guide Myanmar in the proper direction and away from alliances like you wrote about a year and a half ago in terms of even a nuclear alliance with North Korea? What's the international community's responsibility and how do they move forward properly?
Well, I think Aung San Suu Kyi in many ways is the symbol and the seal of approval. That is, the feeling of the international community is that if she is seeing something positive happening, that's something that we have to take very seriously. I think there's a recognition she won't be able to change things by herself, but there's hope if she's involved because she has such a good reputation with the Burmese people. The reality is the military there is in control, and our hope has to be that there are some enlightened leaders within the military who believe that in the best interests of their country that reforms are necessary. And my hope is, sometimes, and think of the Soviet Union, you start the reform process, you can't always control where it comes out. I think the idea was mentioned earlier, kind of a nuanced and a careful response to reforms in Burma. What the international community wants to do is see progress, reward the progress. See more progress, reward more progress. I think, for example, the Obama administration has done a pretty good job. They saw changes there. Secretary Clinton visited and offered the possibility of more. We've had the prisoner release, the signings of the ceasefires. Well, the U.S. is going to upgrade the embassy to full ambassador. But taking sanctions away are not yet on the table. That's down the road. And my hope would be the Europeans would respond the same way, that what you're holding out is serious prospect of reward, but only after we see more changes, and we see changes that last. And we get a sense that maybe they are permanent, and the deeper they are, the harder it would be to reverse them And that is what will transform, I think, Burmese society.
All right,
Well,
Doug Bandow and gentlemen, thank you. We're out of time, but really appreciate you joining us. That's it from the team in Washington, D.C. for now, but we want to hear from you. Tell us what stories you think we should be covering. Send your ideas directly to us at InsideStory@aljazeera.net.